This is the one you've been waiting for. I invited Rugby From The Stands, my favorite stats guy on YouTube, onto the channel, and we went completely overboard. This is a 90-minute feature-length deep dive into one question. How the hell do you win a series against the Springboks? We're looking at 5 years of data, why Dave Rennie was able to beat South Africa 3 times in 4 games with the Wallabies, whether the All Blacks really need lightning quick ball, where the Springboks can actually be vulnerable, and one area where New Zealand might be uniquely equipped to hurt them. Some of this data genuinely shocked me. Now, this thing is epic, so use the chapters below. Jump around, go straight to the breakdown or the tackling, attack, defense, possession, whatever interests you. But stick around till the end. You will learn so many stats to impress your friends at the pub, and I promise you, by the end of it, you will have an answer, because that's when we reveal the 4 ways that the Springboks can be beaten by the All Blacks. Let's get to it. Hello, how are you doing, sir?
I'm well, thank you.
It is so good to have you on the channel. I'm good, man. Look, I've been a fan of your channel, Rugby From The Stands, for a long time. I love what you do. And people started asking about a collaboration. And I just thought it'd be so good to come together. You're my favorite stats guy. And I'm a bit more off the cuff. You know, I think I'm almost more like in the entertainment genre, and I'm not ashamed of that. But what I love about your channel is sometimes I have these gut feelings, and then I see your stats, and I was like, oh my God, I was right.
Yeah.
And then once in a while, I'm also really wrong. And I'm open to that too. So I kind of want to do something today, tell you my fears, my concerns about the Springboks, tell you how I think we can beat the Springboks. And I intentionally have let you go away and come up with all the data. And you're going to show me if my hunches are crazy or if I'm onto something. How does that sound?
Sounds perfect. And also, Julian, as you know, I've been a massive fan of your channel from the get-go. I've even stalked you on Instagram. I've DM'd you really before the channel. And so to be on the channel is humbling, and also a honor and a privilege is what I would consider. So thank you for having me on the show, Julian.
Fantastic. I love it. Well, let's get right into it for people. I understand you got a bit of a presentation here about beating the Boks. Is that right?
That is correct.
There we go.
Okay.
I mean, this is what we're hoping and dreaming about as All Blacks fans.
Oh yeah, of course. And to our South African fans as well, guys, like, you know, you guys are the favorites, clearly. You guys have home advantage. You guys have, you know, a huge number of wins in the bag. This evolution has been happening for, like, you know, nearly a decade so far. And so objectively, it's a much harder proposition to actually figure out how to beat the Boks, as opposed for the Boks to beat the All Blacks, because you've done that so many times, right?
These guys have the wood on us, clearly, statistically, if you look at the last few years. And I think the reason we're also fascinated by the greatest rivalry tour is because this is the ultimate challenge in world rugby. This is climbing Mount Everest. To beat South Africa multiple times at home.
Absolutely. Yikes. Absolutely. And we've heard of, you know, a lot of the Kiwi pundits as well saying that this is harder than winning a World Cup. So there you go.
I guess I'm wondering, if we're going to dive into the data, maybe you could help me understand what period of time you've looked at. Oh, here we go. This is beautiful.
Yeah. No, that's a good starting point. So the data, in terms of what this data set comprises of, I've got games starting from 2021. So this is post-COVID. I don't have data prior to COVID, unfortunately. But so all this data that we have is post-COVID, starting from Townsville, September 2021, right up until that horror show in Wellington last year. But again, being transparent, for whatever reason, Rugby Pass, which is the source, or which is the data source that I pull my data from, for some reason they didn't have the data for the Gold Coast game, nor did they have the data for the Twickenham hiding that we got just before the World Cup in 2023. So,
well, that's just as well, because I would rather forget that game. But to be honest, I think the only stat you need to know is 735. I mean, it was one of the most dominant Boks performances ever over us.
Exactly. And it was eye-opening to me when I looked at it this way as well. Like, 7 South African wins against New Zealand's 4 across the last 11 encounters. That's not a good look for us. I don't think we have such a bad record over a 5-year period in our history. So yeah, obviously, again, South Africa is leading. When it comes to games in South Africa, South Africa has won, 3. We've only won 1. Games in New Zealand, we won 2 in this data set versus 1, which is the Wellington game. And in neutral venues, we've only won 1 versus the Springboks winning 3.
And, that's the one that my eye goes to because, as you know, I live in the United States. I'm actually going to go and see All Black Springboks in Baltimore. And I look at the neutral, and I don't like that statistic. But I guess part of that, of course, is going to be the Rugby World Cup final.
Yes, it does. It does include the Rugby World Cup finals. It also includes the warm-up game in London, and also the 2 games in Australia, Townsville and Gold Coast, earlier in, just after COVID. So yeah.
But ugly reading right out of the gate, considering we're playing 3 in South Africa and 1 on neutral United States territory. So it already looks bad, but I'll let you continue.
No, yeah. It doesn't look great just from a historical perspective. But obviously there's nuances to this, and that's why I will want to get into, right? So the first thing I wanted to kind of showcase is, out of all the metrics that we have, what were the metrics that separated wins versus losses? So this is looking at the 9 games in the past South Africa versus New Zealand games, and looking at, are there any metrics that actually stand out, right? So there's 14 metrics that I looked at. On the right, you see these metrics I felt were pretty similar during wins and losses. So things like possession, territory, post-contact meters per carry, kicks were also very similar. This is New Zealand's performance, by the way. So this is not South Africa. This is how we perform during wins versus losses. But the 4 metrics that you see on the left, this is what really stand out. When we win, we score 3 tries to 1.4. We convert tries much more efficiently, twice as efficiently. So our points per 22 entry is at 4 versus just 2 when we lose. And crucially, the points in the last 10 minutes of a game is 5.5 as opposed to 1.4, right? And minutes spent in the lead is 63 minutes versus when we lose, we are only in the lead for 25 minutes, which is again saying a lot. Now, to be fair, again, it's kind of like, obvious that anyone who scores more tries in a game will probably win, but that's not always,
a truism, yes.
But that's not always true. We scored a try in the World Cup finals, and South Africa didn't, and yet we lost. So I think tries per game is also quite important. But so it shows that scoring 1 try, as we've scored during losses, isn't enough. We need to have a pretty decent number of tries if we want to win. So yeah, this is what I found was interesting in terms of when we win versus when we lose, what seems to be like the differences in how we perform.
Great. So I have a couple thoughts, and we've talked about this a little bit off camera, but I know we're probably going to loop back to it. Certainly, starting hot is a big thing that we've talked about. But before we kind of talk about that, and certainly the points in the last 10 minutes, which just jumps out as the ugliest stat. Wow, that one's brutal.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the quick ball. Okay, and what I'm seeing in the wins and losses is that 52-51, I mean, that is identical. And I guess the thing I wanted to ask you about was there's been so much talk about optimism in the new Dave Rennie era. And you remember the opening game of the year against France, that lightning quick ruck ball. What was it, 86% under 3 seconds?
That's right. Against France, it was 86%. On average, we were roughly about 77, I think, across all 3 games.
Extraordinary. So I haven't seen your data yet, but this is what my hunch is. There's no way in hell the Boks are going to let us play with that much ruck speed. I just think they are the best team in the world at slowing us down. Is there any credence to that theory?
So I did look at it because, to be honest, that was the initiation of our conversation as well at the start. Yeah. This is my hunch. What does the data say? So I did look at it. So there's 2 parts to this. One is, do we have to have quick ball to beat the Boks? And secondly, do the Boks actually slow teams down, right? And so the second question, the answer is absolutely yes. Springboks are the team that slows pretty much every single team down. Yep. And they impact us more than a lot of other teams. So Wales, So you're right.
Yeah, I didn't need any stats to know that. It's visibly apparent that they
Yeah,
really slow down our ruck ball.
no, 100%. So Wales is the only team that they slow down, more than us, which is quite interesting. So our average ruck speed is 61% across all tier one nations, and this is across 58 games, if I'm not mistaken. So our average ruck speed is lightning quick ball is 61%. The Boks bring that down on average to 51%. Now, that's clearly the case. They will slow you down, and they do it to everybody. The interesting part, though, which I think is potentially encouraging and also eye-opening as well, because a lot of us think to beat the Boks we have to have lightning quick ball. But if you were to look at the data, we've and on the right here you see these balls. They've got the lightning quick ball number, so the percentage inside those balls. So 30 means 30% lightning quick ball, 65 meaning 65% lightning quick ball. The ones in green are when we win, and the ones in red or maroon. I'm a bit colorblind, so it looks like red to me. Are also the lightning quick ball numbers when we lose games. And as you can see, we've won games when we had lightning quick ball. We've lost games when we had lightning quick ball. We've lost games with slow ball, and we've won games with very slow ball. Like this game in Eden Park, the last game that we beat them, it was the slowest lightning quick ball we've had in this data set. 30% is very unlike All Black style rugby, and yet we won. So, yes, they slow us down, but no, it's not a prerequisite for us to win games against the Springboks, because the data doesn't suggest that is a factor, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I actually think that's quite a reassuring statistic for New Zealanders, because my only concern about this whole optimism thing and the counterattack at all costs methodology that you kind of saw against France, and you thought, oh my goodness, is this the helter-skelter way the All Blacks are going to be playing all year? I think some of us were drinking the Kool-Aid and thinking, oh, we just have to play like that. We have to run teams off their feet. And I think it's nice to see that there's another pathway, because I'm not convinced that just frantic ball and play, pure ruck speed is necessarily our surest path to victories, and you've just proved it here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's very attractive rugby to watch, but against the Boks, I think that probably actually works in their favor, because a lot of people talk about the fact that this is a clash of styles, and it absolutely is a clash of styles. So when you play your style to the nth degree, and you've got the Springboks who are designed to counter that style, you're putting yourself in a position where you're actually putting yourself in a lot of risk. Having said that, a lot of All Blacks fans would rather that we play that helter-skelter, high skill, high tempo style rugby and lose than play a slow, sluggish style of play and win. Having said that, against the Boks, I'm pretty sure every All Black fan is going to say, I don't care the style, just
we'll take a 1 point win. We'll take a 1 point win.
We'll take it all day. We'll take anything at this point. So I think the key takeaway, I feel like, in terms of like where I would land is we would obviously want to dictate tempo, but I think we should be prepared for a slower or relatively slow paced game. So we need to be prepared. We absolutely need a plan B. And secondly, if we can try and dictate the pace, not throughout the game, but at least at some parts, I think that'll be smart. So you up the tempo at certain periods, and we'll get to that as well, like which periods you potentially need to focus on. But that might probably be the better approach, rather than saying, hey, we have to maintain a certain, lightning quick ball speed throughout the game. That's not sustainable.
No, and just one thought on that, and I understand it's a club game, so it's not comparable to the Boks, but if you look at the All Black Sharks game that we just saw recently in Durban, you look at how much the All Blacks kicked, and I think having that variety in their attack means that when they do go for the all-out running rugby, it's more likely to yield a positive result.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to think they'll be kicking a lot in the Republic, actually.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this, we talked about this off air as well. I feel like both Dave Rennie and Rassi are playing 4D chess here. They're not really, showing their hand just yet. It wouldn't surprise me at all if, come next Saturday and, the Boks start running from everywhere and the All Blacks start kicking from everywhere,
I can totally see that.
That would be
Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be so great. So good to see. It would be hilarious. But I reckon it would be incredibly entertaining as well, because I genuinely love the Springbok backline. I feel like they don't get enough flowers or opportunities to really showcase their prowess. They are an incredibly dangerous backline. And so if Rassi does, decide to use them, we saw what they could do in that Wellington game, right?
Absolutely.
The
second half in Wellington, I mean, that's everything you need to know about the quality of attacking player they have.
Yeah,
Ethan Hooker, Esther Hazen, Damian Willems, Kanan Moody. I mean, they've got superstars throughout.
Yeah.
Well, and this might segue into where you're going to go next, but when I think about kicking, there's a lot about territory and playing down the right end of the field. You hear that a lot because the Springboks are so good when they get in the opposition 22. They can pretty much just pick and go and beat most teams that way. Do you have anything around how territory is going to be a factor in these games?
Oh, yeah. So territory is an interesting one. There's no indication that having more territory is a bad thing.
Sure.
Obviously. So you'd obviously want to dictate, positionally, you want to be in better parts of the pitch. However, looking at the data, it's interesting here because I've called out two scenarios here, and I've also called out another two scenarios. So one, the first one that you see here is the Wellington game. I'm sorry, All Blacks fans. I've got PTSD thinking about this game.
Me too, bro.
So
we have to learn from it. We have to turn it into a positive. We have to make it a teachable moment. That's the only way I can cope. Exactly. I need to take something from it. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to do here. We're trying to learn what can we do. Right?
Let's not do it again. How about that? Yeah.
Exactly. Never again. Okay. So in that loss in Wellington, we had 41% territory. Now in Mount Smart, in the game that we played really well, we put 35 points against the Springboks. Again, we had 41% territory. Right.
Unbelievable.
Now the difference is that is the funnel. This is what I like to call the funnel, where you've got obviously territory. Hopefully that territory will allow you to, it leads to line breaks. Those line breaks lead to 22-meter entries. Those 22-meter entries then result in points. So I'm looking at the conversion rate of this funnel, right? So with 41% territory, the line breaks across both games are very similar, 9 to 10. But the difference is in the entries to the 22 meters. So in Wellington, we only had 4 entries. So that's 0.44 entries per line break. Whereas in Mount Smart, you got 0.8. So almost 1-to-1. So every time we had a line break, we were in that 22-meter area, right? That red zone. Now, it's not enough getting into the 22 meters. You need to convert those entries into points. Wellington, we were woeful in terms of converting those entries into points, just 1.7. But in Mount Smart, we doubled that, right? So we entered the 22 meters 8 times, but we came away with points every single time we entered the 22 meters. Now, going back to the territory metric, if you also look at the last games, the Argentinian game that the South Africans played recently, where Argentina lost 10-17, it was a close game, and
listen, they were, I believe they were level an hour into the game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they were 10-all until that last 10 minutes, I reckon. So, and in if if the Argentinians scored in that last play, they had the opportunity to potentially draw that game. But it was a close one. It was a tight, close game. Now, again, Argentina only had 38% territory, and the line breaks were 8, which is, again, not too bad. That's decent numbers, but they only had 5 entries. So that's also an indication that they weren't playing in the right part of the field. We also noticed that there were lots of line breaks, but South Africa are a team that is incredible at scramble D, right? So their cover defense is better than anybody else in the world. So they will shut you down. So that's what you see here in the Argentina game. Now, on the flip side, a lot of people are saying that, Scotland are a team that's very similar to how the All Blacks play. I have my reservations on that. Honestly, I don't believe that's 100% the case. But for argument's sake, let's say, Scotland's like...
Let's say they're All Blacks-ish. How about that?
Exactly. All Blacks light, or,
There you go. That's good. With all due respect to Scotland.
With all due respect to Scotland. I love the Scottish style of rugby.
No, they're great. They're a great team.
Now, when they played the Springboks, again, they troubled the Springboks in that game as well. But this time they had 60% territory. They had 12 line breaks. And actually they had more line breaks than the Springboks did. They had 11 entries. So almost every line break became a 22-meter entry. But look at that conversion rate. It was only 2.5. And against the Boks, who converted at 4 points per entry. Or was it 4.5? Definitely more than 4 points per entry. So it's not enough entering the 22 meters. The more important thing is the conversion rate. So to answer your question, Julian, territory is important, obviously, because you want to be playing in South Africa's half. But that alone isn't enough. You've got to finish the job. You've got to figure out a way to get into the 22 meters and then come away with points. That's more important, I believe, than territory alone.
That's really a great insight. And just while we're on the Scotland game, because I don't think we'll be on this topic again anytime in our chat, this was the one where a lot of people came out and said, look at how porous the Springboks defense is. They missed 40-plus tackles. But you've already called it out. I'm not saying the Springboks intentionally missed tackles. I'm not saying that. But I do feel that they are happy to give up some line breaks and scramble, and they will then just erect this wall of defense in their 22. And your data here kind of proves that. You look that the Scottish were not efficient in the 22. It's almost like the South Africans go to a different level when they're defending near their line. And you can actually make, I don't want to say easy meters, but there is some room to make meters either side of the 50. This is what I'm kind of seeing here in the stats, wouldn't you say?
Oh, 100%. So if you notice South Africa's defense, right, they give you the edge. They intentionally give you the edge and they go, if you're good enough, take it, right? So they dare you to do that. Now, to get to the edge, you've got to play some high-risk plays. Like, you've got to take risks. So if you're looking at risk versus reward, you've got to be good enough to finish, those actions. And that's where I feel like Scotland weren't great. And at the same time, Argentina as well, they found space at the edges. They absolutely did. But they weren't good enough to execute and finish those breaks. And some of the times, especially those long passes as well, just went into touch most of the time.
Exactly. Yes.
So finishing, execution, that's going to be really important. And they dare you to do that. So from what I'm gathering, it looks like how South Africa tries to play their rugby is they want to dictate. They don't want to be passive. They don't want to wait until they don't want to react to how the attacking team plays. They want to enforce, the outcome using their defense. So they try to shape the game into how they want to play. So and that involves, sending people at breakneck speed just to cut time and space. And they force you to either go to ground or to kick when that wasn't your intention.
And sometimes that stat could almost be read as a missed tackle, but it actually was pressuring. Is that fair to say? Could that come up statistically as a missed tackle if it's just pressuring?
So the example that's usually given to labor the point is the I think the pool game between South Africa and Scotland. Now that was a key game. Again, Scotland gives South Africa, a run for their money. And Rassie has said this as well. He's literally said that they feel that Scotland are a tougher opponent than England, right? I don't know whether he's saying it tongue in cheek or whether he was playing mind games, but statistically, I think Scotland do have a style of play that definitely does push the Springboks. Now, in that World Cup pool game, there was a moment there where Finn Russell gets the ball, Faf de Klerk just runs straight at him, and he pressures him. And obviously, Finn Russell, you can see he is angling to pass the ball, but he doesn't. He stops. He sees Faf come straight at him. He sidesteps, and then he kicks the ball. Now, and he kicked it clearly in a position where he wasn't prepared to kick. He just thought that's the best thing because line speed is really really fast. And so if I was Jack Ninaber, I'll look at that and be like, Faf, that was your role. I don't care about that missed tackle. It would the missed tackle against Faf in the stats. But if I was Rassie or Jack, I'll be like, that was your you executed it to perfection. So as far as the team is concerned, the missed tackles, I know that this is a bit of a running joke amongst Kiwis where they're like, oh, the first tackle is, I think South African fans aren't able to articulate their strategy effectively enough, because it kind of sounds like that's their strategy. The first guy who goes in misses the tackle so that the second guy tackles it. It's not as crude as that. I think what the guy coming up first, so that could be your 7, that could be your halfback, their role is to put so much pressure on the ball carrier that they make a decision that was counter to what they had planned in mind, right? So you're either rushing them to do whatever they wanted to do, or you catch them before the gain line, which means, again, the Boks are on the front foot. So not to labor the point here.
No, I think it's really important because I think a lot of people have said, oh, the missed tackles thing, that's an opportunity for us. And I'm not saying they don't actually miss some tackles too, but I think it's important to call that out because I think there's just a general pressuring that they do, which can be a bit messy, look a bit scrappy, but it's effective. And like you said, it causes suboptimal decisions, particularly with the kicking game. That's a perfect example where he kicked in a way he probably didn't want to, but he just had to get away from the pressure.
Exactly.
Well, let's change the topic just a little bit here because something jumps out to me here. So you're talking about Mount Smart 2023. I just remember that game. The All Blacks started with a hiss and a roar. That was the one I want to say Shannon Frizzell was just running rampant. So my memory is that really when we have beaten the Boks, we're starting hot. It happened at Eden Park last year. You were at that game.
Yeah.
It started with Beauden Barrett to Amoni Narawa. We were hot from the get-go. Is that essential? Is that what we need to do in these games coming up?
Well, so I looked at the data across the 9 games and looked at whenever we won, minutes in lead was 63 minutes out of 80 for wins. That is, New Zealand are in the lead for 63 minutes out of the 80 when we win, versus just 25 minutes when we lose. So, and interestingly, I also looked at Dave Rennie's 4 games that Dave Rennie coached against the Boks with the Wallabies. And again, 66 minutes out of 80, the Wallabies led in their wins versus not leading at all in that 4th game that they lost against the Springboks. So you're absolutely right. And it was weird being at that stadium at Eden Park as well, because South Africa came in as hot favorites and they were looking to take that record, right?
The Eden Park streak, yeah,
exactly. And but as a fan in the stands, I never felt like the All Blacks were losing that game. Like from the start, it was weird because, again, we started hot, just like you said, and we maintained that lead throughout the game, right? And we made the Springboks make uncharacteristic mistakes, made it really difficult for them And as you know, the style of play was more us trying to disrupt them as opposed to them trying to disrupt us. So yeah, looking at the data, it definitely looks like the All Blacks have to start really, really hot and then maintain that lead and keep adding to that lead. And you don't want to be chasing games against the Springboks.
Nope.
And you don't want to go into that last 20 minutes with a one score difference. Like that's.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, you need to be. I mean, is 2 tries even enough? I'm kind of like, at what point are you remotely comfortable with a lead with the Springboks in the last quarter? I would say you're never really. I mean, maybe that 57-0 game, perhaps. But
Exactly. I mean, you're
yeah.
looking at the stats here again. When we win, we score at least 3 tries versus one and a half, which means that yes, we need a pretty decent lead against the Springboks, especially going into that last quarter of the game.
Okay, so that hunch was correct. And people might think, well, isn't that obvious? You got to start hot. Well, not necessarily. I mean, there are really some second half teams. Clearly, the All Blacks haven't been that in the last couple of years. One thing I asked you to take a look at in the data, obviously, we're obsessed with the All Blacks, and mostly it's going to be Kiwis and South Africans watching this. But I know you took a look at some other teams that have beaten South Africa outside of New Zealand. What did you kind of learn from that?
Yeah. So, interestingly, over the same period since 2021, there has been 7 teams that have beaten the Springboks, and there's 2 ways that these teams have beaten the Boks. And on this graph, I have mapped out possession in their wins. So you can see goes from 40% right up to 50.5%, which is New Zealand. So left on the chart means you had less ball. Right on the chart means you had more ball. And then on the y-axis, you've got passes per game. And the reason why I chose passes per game is because that's kind of a proxy to how much rugby that team played, right? So if you're passing a lot, that means you potentially.
Is that the optimism statistic? Is that what that kind of is?
Yeah, you could say that. You could say that
Okay.
that is, yeah. You're a team that likes to pass as opposed to go direct, So, and as you can see, it's interesting here because the majority of the teams who have beaten the Springboks have won it off less possession and playing less rugby. If I could say that, I know it's a bit of a blanket statement.
That's crazy, but it's true. I mean, look at that.
So, whereas the All Blacks are the only team in the world who has beaten the Boks with more than 50% possession in these last 5 years. And they do it with the most amount of passes as well. 157 passes in 4 wins with more than half the possession. Ireland is probably the closest with 48.7, but still not with more possession than the Springboks.
But that's incredible. I mean, New Zealand's almost doubling the England win and the France win in terms of how much they're handling the ball. I mean, that is a shockingly large difference. But I think we all know that, like, whether you're a New Zealand fan or not a New Zealand fan, it's pretty apparent that they do handle the ball the most and pass the most.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I think it, when you're analyzing these games, you need to look at how we win games versus how other teams win games. And it doesn't mean that that's the style that we need to follow, because the All Blacks are very efficient at their style of game. So you can't look at a game between, say, Scotland and South Africa and say, oh, the Scottish couldn't do that against the Springboks, and presume that the All Blacks won't be successful with that same style. So I think this is a more than 100 years of legacy in this All Blacks team in that specific style of play, and so it doesn't mean that we need to now be a low possession team. It's fine. It's an anomaly, but clearly we're the best in the world at holding the ball and winning against the Springboks. And we're the team that, again, historically have beaten the Boks the most. So,
it makes me a little bit proud to see this statistic.
Yeah, 100%. But interestingly, at the same time, if you look at Australia, so they've got 4 wins, and on average, they've won with less ball, 46%, and with less passes. That's very un-Australian-like.
It is, because they're an attacking team, or at least we imagine them as a swashbuckling team that's kind of all about the back line. You know, that's
Yeah,
kind of people's impression. They love to put air on the ball.
yeah, 100%. And interestingly, out of these 4 wins, 3 of them, as we know, was by Dave Rennie when he under his leadership. And the great thing about Dave Rennie, as you can see here, is that he is willing to trial out or test out different styles of play in order to get the win. So he got the Wallabies playing a completely different style of play, which is, less possession, less touches, and let's go direct. And we can also see, I've got a couple of slides as well covering how Dave Rennie beat the Springboks as well. But now he is coaching a team with high possession. And so he's obviously probably devising a strategy in terms of how to use that strength against the Springboks. Because, again, no disrespect to the Wallabies back in the day, but Dave Rennie didn't have the luxury of the talent that he now has.
Oh yeah. And look, that wasn't the Gregan Larkham years. I mean, respectfully, like that this was the era that ended with, Eddie Jones and getting knocked out of the pool in the 2023 World Cup. And maybe we can blame Eddie for that, because I actually think there were a lot of really good Australian players in that period. But you're right, that wasn't like a golden patch for the Aussies by any means. So particularly impressive.
So he was able to devise a game plan that he thought would probably be the most effective against the Springboks. And 3 out of the 4 times he was successful. So that's quite interesting. So again, I would be very surprised if Dave Rennie would go in against the Springboks with a low possession type style of play. I think that would be very surprising. I reckon in Johannesburg, they're going to go with a high tempo, high possession style game. If they lose that game, maybe to be more conservative, they might, swing the other way. But I reckon they will stick to their guns and play this attacking style of play throughout the 4 games is my hunch. What do you think, Julian?
Yeah, I hear you on that. I think that I love the optimism idea. I think that in the first game against France, we maybe took that to an extreme where we barely kicked the ball. We kicked the ball half as much as we usually do, if I'm not wrong. And I think you're seeing a better balance coming in now. And I think that we can unleash that all-out hurricane-style attack, really be hitting the rucks fast. Have a guy like Lakai just hitting the rucks quick. Have a Cam Roigard or even a Kyle Preston just getting in there, aiming for that lightning-quick ruck ball, but knowing when to play our hand. And I think also, as you said, you can get into trouble if you just attack at all costs and are always running out of your 22. I think sometimes we're going to have to play the touchline. And look, that's a good segue, because we're talking about New Zealand's DNA and how much we love to handle the ball. That has been remarkably consistent for 100 years. I know that you were going to look at the Springboks and how their styles evolved, because it does seem to all of us that the Springboks we've seen in the last few years are not the Springboks of 20 or 10 or even 5 years ago.
No, not at all, actually. And the data suggests that as well. And it's clear as day in terms of how the Springboks have stayed true to their DNA over the last 5 years, but have added layers to their attack over the last few years as well. And
damn, bro.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. So they used to average 86 passes per game. Now it's at 113. Line breaks, tries, points per 22 entry. They're outdoing the All Blacks on these metrics now. Like, it's brutal. They went from 1.8 line breaks to 9.3. That's like a 5x increase over 5 years. Tries, look at that. They used to average just 1.6 tries per game, and now they're at 6.7. So clearly there's huge evolution in terms of how they attack. So they've added that attacking dimension as well. But on the flip side, they've also stayed true to their DNA. So scrums, as we know, they've got the most powerful scrum in the world. Their post-contact meters have gone up over the last 5 years, if you can believe that. They're attacking, plus they've added physicality as well, and their territory game has stayed pretty flat throughout the 5 years as well. And they're kicking, as you can see, they're still kicking. At
Yeah.
0.
Oh, they kick a lot, and they kick a lot from halfback.
Exactly. Oh yes, absolutely.
They love a good box kick.
Yes, they do. And also, if I may, I'm just going to skip to the next slide as well. In terms of how the All Blacks over the last 5 years, in terms of if you break a game into 4 quarters, we wanted to see how they score in each of those quarters. And it's over the last 5 years, this is excluding 2026, the Springboks start slow in that first half, but look at that second half, and especially that last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's pretty insane. They average 10 points. That's equal to 2 tries unconverted, or 3 penalties in that last 20 minutes of a game. Whereas the All Blacks over the last 5 years, they have this second half lull,
Yeah.
where they go strong in that second quarter, and then there doesn't seem to be an increase in their efficiency in scoring. So that is concerning.
I hate this statistic. Yeah. And look, and we've spoken about this off camera. I'm seeing so many great new things under Rennie, and I'm seeing real changes. The thing that has haunted me, and it's something I spoke about a lot on my channel, and we all were worried about it, was just that third and fourth quarter fade. And it felt really uniquely like a Razor Robertson era thing, that it had never seemed so bad. And I'm just not sure if it's a difference in depth, whether this is just a function of South Africa having superior depth and all this rotation and the stocks that Rassie has just coming home in the last 20 and finishing stronger. It's just hard to explain such a gulf there between the two teams.
Oh yeah, 100%. So this was pre-Rennie. This is post-Rennie. Now, granted, this is just three games. But the good news is, Julian, in that third quarter, we actually averaged more points in that third quarter. So
I like that.
Straight before the halftime we score, and straight after halftime we score.
Classic All Blacks.
Classic All Blacks. But you then layer in South Africa's style, which again hasn't changed even in 2026. They seem to have a lull in the second quarter, which is quite interesting.
They really do. And frankly, I mean, that's worse than any of our lulls. So that's an opportunity to attack in that period of the game.
Yeah, 100%. I think, and that's where we score quite a bit as well. And we saw how England really came back into the game in that second quarter against their game against the Springboks as well.
After being blown off the paddock, quite frankly, for the first 20 minutes of that game, and just it looked like boys against men.
Yeah, I think that probably might have skewed this data as well, because look, they're averaging 15 points in that first 20 minutes. That's probably a lot of that is to do with that England game. And they just went really quiet in that second quarter, which was quite interesting. But then in that second half, they finish and they close really, really strong. And I mean, Julian, I just wanted, again, we're not affiliated to this guy, but I really love this book by Sam Lana. I hope you can see this. It's called Attacking the Space. And on page 145, he says something really interesting, which I'm very surprised that it hasn't gotten a lot more attention, if I'm being honest. So if I may, I'll just read this paragraph here. He says that 58% of all scrums take place in the second half of matches. Assuming 13 scrums per match, a player featuring just in the first half of a 20-game season will participate in 41.6 fewer scrums than one playing in the second half of those matches. And yet, what do most teams do? They start their best players and try to get them through to the hour mark. So That leaves 20 minutes for the replacement props to come on. Yet the fourth quarter is easily the most scrum-heavy quarter of all, with 31% of all scrums. So, and this is also an interesting stat. He says, across a 20-game season, a player featuring for the last 30 minutes will scrummage 114.4 times compared with 81.9 for a player featuring in the first 30 minutes. So that that explains a lot of this, if I'm being honest.
It does. And it also just immediately I'm thinking, well, this is why you see Malcolm Marx, arguably the best hooker in the world, so often coming off the bench. It's like Rassie's realized, hey, we maybe need the number one guy to close the game, not start it. Now, you need good front rowers out there for the first 60, but man, is that critical, that last 20 minutes.
100%. And this is more important, I would argue, more important against the All Blacks, because unlike any other team, the All Blacks actually are pretty good at ball handling. So there are a lot of scenarios where the All Blacks actually don't even give you an opportunity to scrum you in the first half. So
yes.
is it even, would you rather have ball playing front rowers in that, first half, and then bring on your scary, dominant front rowers?
Set piece warriors.
Exactly, because
so it's almost like you have. I'm not saying he should do this, but it's almost like, is Ethan de Groot coming off the bench and actually maybe I don't know, is it Xavier Numia, is it Pasilio Tosi, is it that you actually want the mobility for the first 50, 60 minutes? Just a thought. I'm not sure that's the right way to go, but
exactly. I think we definitely need to completely rethink how we look at, especially when it comes to the front rows. Not just the front rows, even the pack, right?
The whole pack,
especially the front rows. Obviously, we really need to rethink what we mean by starting versus bench. There's no such thing as a bench player being your second string or second choice player. That's gone. That's not how we should be thinking about how these players play.
And let's give credit to the Springboks too, because they have advanced that idea more than anyone. I truly, sincerely take my hat off to Rassie. The way he deploys the bench, innovative things like bringing everyone on at the same time. I just think the way he's used them for impact is masterful. I really do.
Yeah, and the stats obviously support him, right?
Yeah, it's right there.
You control the set piece in that last 20 minutes, and you have your best front rowers, scrummaging at that point in time. And you will be in a position to close games off very, very strong, because you have a pack that gives you forward momentum that allows the backs to then attack and dominate. And if it's a close game, they'll win you scrum penalties, and then it either gives you territory or gives you penalty opportunities to kick to goal. So it's a weapon, and I'm shocked that the All Blacks haven't really looked at utilizing our best scrummages in the second half as opposed to the first.
I look at this and I'm like, well, maybe we start Asafo Amua and Cody Taylor comes off the bench instead of starting. I don't know. Do we need to look at it totally differently?
Yeah, I think. To be honest, I do love Asafo Amua coming in the second half with that impact.
The physicality. Yeah.
Against tired bodies, he is just insane. I would rather have Cody, because Cody is a pretty decent ball player, to be fair.
He is. Yes. It's not like we're missing mobility. He's still, and he's in his 30s, but he's still running really well.
Yeah, but I think from the props perspective, I would absolutely have an Ethan de Groot or a Tyrell Lomax coming on in the second
off the bench. Yeah,
as opposed to the first. But yeah, that's just a thought. I mean, just looking at this, I think we, and honestly, even during selections, this might be a bit of an unpopular opinion, Julian, but I would have really liked to have seen Angus Tawau being selected, because he and Ethan de Groot for the Highlanders were rock solid. Like, they were winning penalties at will against stronger scrums in Super Rugby. I know he's not the most mobile and ball playing front row, but against the Boks, you want a solid scrummager. And I feel like that was a missed opportunity. But again, that's just my thought. Angus is, one of our better, scrummaging props. But having said that, let's hope that Tyrell Lomax, he brings his A game against the Springboks, and historically he's done very well against the Springboks as well. And I think the Boks respect him as well. So
and De Groot. I mean, I think those two,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They lift against South Africa.
Yes, that is true. That is true. Anyways, so that's. So again, this goes back to what we talked about as well. Everything is tied together. If you notice, Julian, we do need to start strong. We need to, carry on that lead and lead for at least 60 minutes of the game. And this is why. It's because in that last 20 minutes, I hate to say this, but if we're going into that last 20 minutes and we are one score, or even like you said, Julian, 2 scores apart, we're probably going to be in trouble.
And look, hopefully history doesn't repeat, but until the trend is broken, this is kind of what we have to fall back on as the probability. Not a guarantee, but probable.
Yeah. And also just to counter that as well, in the last couple of games that we played against the URC teams, the good news was, again, this is looking at all the metrics in terms of possession, quick ball, line breaks, points per entry. I'm not going to go into too much detail with the games against the Stormers and the Sharks, but if you look at the bottom section here, where the points that we scored across the quarters, we're doing better now in that fourth quarter. Again, the Stormers and the Sharks. Again, yes, they are club teams.
They're club teams, yeah, that's a caveat for sure. But, I'd rather see the trend improving than not.
Yeah, exactly. So, and if you look at the game against the Sharks, again, we, the second half, we were very, very strong across, both the third quarter and the fourth quarter. So that's encouraging.
And the Stormers game, I mean, the fourth quarter saved it. I mean, we were brilliant in the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So,
some hopium there for All Blacks fans that maybe the fourth quarter might be improving.
Yeah. I think that's definitely a work on that the coaches are looking at, because this definitely looks encouraging from that perspective. But would this
different level against the Boks?
Exactly. That's the big question mark.
So if we go back to when Rennie beat the Springboks 3 times out of 4 as the coach of the Wallabies, did you have some stats on how the hell did they do it? How did he beat these guys 3 times?
Yeah. So
here we go. This is what I want to see. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, we're looking at 4 games, and the bars in gold are basically when the Wallabies beat South Africa, and the bars in red is when the Wallabies lost to South Africa. What didn't separate the two teams is on the right here. So things like kicking, possession, territory, turnovers lost, none of this had a major separation between the teams. But look at turnovers won. 7.7 turnovers won versus just 1 when they lost. Minutes in lead, like we talked about before, 66 minutes as opposed to 0. And the 22-meter entries is more than double, 9 versus 4. Line breaks, 5 versus just 1. Tries, 3 to 1. Tackle missed. This is, again, understandable. 12 versus 19. And dominant tackles, 0 dominant tackles when they lost, but they had at least 5% dominant tackles in games that they won. So clearly, Australia played a game that was very akin to the Chiefs in 2012 and 2013 under Dave Rennie. They were a menace to the breakdown.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. The turnovers won.
Exactly. They led for most of the game, and they were clearly quite physical. They had high percentage of dominant tackles. Granted, 5% isn't the same as the Springboks 10%, where Springboks typically average, but still for Australia, 5% dominant tackles is relatively high for how the Wallabies play. So they brought the physicality essentially, and they were being a menace against the Springboks. And I think there's some learnings here. in terms of the breakdown. But the caveat here also is that this was a 2021-2022 Springbok
Sure.
team. The team in 2025 and 2026 is very different. I'm talking about the Springboks, obviously. So would this style work? I don't know. It's obviously, it's obvious that if you dominate the breakdown, you will have the upper hand. Obviously, because there's more breakdowns or rucks in a game as opposed to scrums. So if you can dominate, rucks and breakdowns, you'll probably be in a better position to stamp your authority in the game. But it's going to be hard to do that against guys like Jasper Wiese and some of the South African.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm starting to wonder too, and it goes back to this lightning quick ball obsession we all got after how quickly we recycled against France. We're worried about not being able to maintain that. We're worried about securing our ruck ball. Should we really also be thinking about destabilizing their ruck and just counterattacking and just throwing everything at that when they are on attack? Because I have at times seen weakness in their attacking breakdown. That's surprisingly, it's not something I associate with the Springboks, but that to me has actually been their Achilles heel in the last few years. And I've talked about that a bit on my channel, that their ball security isn't what you would expect from a Springbok side of this caliber, one of the best ever. You just got me thinking with that here, because, this is sort of a blueprint. I understand it's a different team. This was years ago, but the turnover stat there just jumps off the page to me.
Oh, 100%. And I think we'll get into that as well. Because my concern is, I'm not 100% convinced we have the right personnel to implement this game plan, because the people that we have on our side right now, I'm not 100% sure they are turnover merchants. Like even the first 3 games, we didn't pilfer the ball as much, and I was closely watching the breakdowns of the Springboks over the last few games, even against the game against Argentina recently. Their ball security was pretty decent. Like, I rarely saw a Springbok back get isolated. Whenever they get tackled, there's always somebody who's cleaning, who is like setting the ruck and protecting the ruck and protecting the ball. So I'm not sure whether, unless of course, our guys go helter-skelter, especially an Ethan de Groot going in and trying to, slow their ball, really, mess with them, or a Tupou Vaa'i going in and, but it can't just be 1 or 2 players, to be fair, because in that game against the Springboks at Eden Park, you saw multiple players doing that. You had, Taukiaho, played a fantastic game, Tupou Vaa'i, Scott Barrett,
and backs.
And the backs, of course.
And backs, and yeah.
It needs to be spread out. My concern is right now in that first 3 games, other than maybe Adi, I haven't really seen anyone else, really attack the breakdown. I've seen really decent, clearing work by Luke Jacobson, but I haven't really seen enough to give me the confidence to say that we would be able to stamp our authority at the breakdown against the Boks. We could do that against Ireland, and we did that. We did that really well. Again, I don't know. It's maybe the PTSD from Wellington. I don't know. I
hear you, brother. I feel that.
I'm just, again, no. We're going to be optimistic. We're going to be optimistic, Julian. We're
learning. We've learned from that.
Yeah, we're going to dominate. We're going to dominate the
breakdown. That's what we're manifesting. Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So why don't we take a look at, if you had some stats on how these teams played, head to head. If we look at just this July window, the Nations Championship.
Well, yeah. So I don't have the head-to-head numbers, but I do have their July averages, and I've put them next to each other. Again, this isn't them playing each other. They're playing obviously 2 completely different sets of opponents, because that's how the Nations Championship was structured, right?
Yeah. So
So
the Kiwis, just for reference, what do we have? We had France, we had Italy, and then we had Ireland.
that's
The
right.
Boks took on, I want to say Scotland, certainly, England,
England and Wales.
Wales, and
Yeah.
Wales. Okay, great.
So, and in gray, you can see that's the total average of all the nations cup championship teams. So as you can see from on the left, this is attacking stats: ball carries, line breaks, 22-meter entries, tries, and tries per 22 entries. And both South Africa and New Zealand are attacking very, very efficiently than the average. You can see that they're miles ahead in that regard, right? Now the difference is in the defense. So you've got average again here. South Africa, they concede the least number of line breaks. They concede the least number of 22-meter entries. They concede the least number of tries. New Zealand are the second in that whole championship list, which is great. But as you can see, South Africa are terrific on attack and also exceptional on defense. So they're really good both sides of the ball. But we're second best based on the stats. So there's some hope, I suppose.
Hey, I mean, we're ranked 1 and 2 in the world, and here it is. It's there in the data. But look, I mean, that is a little sobering, I have to be honest. Even though the Kiwi stats are very good there, those defensive stats from South Africa, that's even more impressive than the attacking stats when I look at that.
100%. And again, to be fair to the All Blacks as well, this is obviously an average of the 3 games. But I did a video on the All Blacks, looking at, as a review of the Nations Cup championship, and there was improvement over the 3 games. So our defensive stats really improved against the Irish. But again, just to be statistically fair, it wouldn't be fair just to look at the Irish 1 game versus 3 games of the Springboks. So to be
So yes, New Zealand seemingly was on a positive trend through that series.
From a defensive standpoint, yes. We conceded less line breaks and tries against the Irish, and those numbers did improve. So that's encouraging. So I just hope that they take that momentum into the first test.
So how did these teams attack? I know I was asking about getting some data on that. Who's carrying the ball? Who's doing the most damage with ball in hand for both teams?
So I didn't look at players because when I did look at players, it was a bit messy, especially for the Springboks, because they rotated their squad.
Yeah, every week was like a different team. Yeah,
exactly. Whereas on the New Zealand side, there was a little bit more consistency in selection. So what I thought was more useful was to look at it positionally, because at the end of the day, if you're a coach, you are more likely. I mean, there are some teams who build strategies across, one player or 2. Whereas I would like to think that coaches have a overarching sort of playbook in terms of how they want to play a game. And then that's reflected on how they play, and you look at the positional stats. So I'm just trying to kind of glean what we can get out of looking at it by positions. So this is a bar chart, essentially looking at carries and meters per carry. So again, this is not post-contact meters. And just for everyone's reference, meters per carry is calculated from the moment you catch the ball until you go to ground or you pass the ball. So however much meters you gained in that process. Post-contact meters is they only start counting the moment there's a contact. So the moment there's a tackle or some contact being made, post that, how many meters did you get? So meters per carry essentially includes both your before engagement and post being tackled by a defender, right? So this gives you the full meters per carry numbers. So clearly, you can see that the All Blacks carry across the board, carry more. And if you look at certain specific positions, loose forwards, again, 41 meters. You've got at center, we carry the most in the midfield.
That's a lot more than the Springboks.
That's double the Springboks.
And
Yeah,
that's crazy to me because when I'm thinking of the Springboks, it's like if I close my eyes, I imagine the loose forwards. I think of Sia, I think of Peter Steph Toy, but I'm also like thinking of Damien Diolendi and Jesse Creel, just like running all game. And I'm like, where is that in the data?
So again, um, this is based off of the 3 games that they played, and it's
Sure,
clear
yeah.
that they played a far more kicking game
Yeah.
here, and also to a certain extent, they were way to a couple of things as well we need to take into account. One is that they had less possession in those 3 games as opposed to the
Yes.
All Blacks. They had much higher possession, and they were far more efficient in scoring. So the
Mm,
moment they got the ball, they just scored. So you would
yeah,
see.
that's right. So the South African fans can be like, well, we don't need to pass the ball that much. And frankly, they might have a point.
Yeah, and that's where the grayed out numbers matter, Julian, because yes, the centers only made 12.3 meters, but if you look at it per carry, this is where it gets interesting. So
Sure, they're efficient. They're actually more effective.
yeah,
Yes.
they carry 4.1 meters per carry as opposed to our 2.2, right? It's the same across the board. So even the loose forwards, yes, we carried more overall, but per carry, we only carry 2.6
Yeah,
meters
the
per.
Boks are making more, and I'm not surprised by that when you think about the ball carriers they have, or the
Yeah.
number 8s that Jasper Visa or Esther
Yes.
Hazen. I mean, these guys just make so many meters. One thing that's good to see, certainly the New Zealand back 3,
Yeah.
pretty much usually are world beaters.
Yeah.
I mean that's pretty nice there because a lot more carries. I mean, pretty much double, and it's comparable the meters they're making. So
Yes.
there is opportunity to counterattack through the back 3. We've got the athletes for that.
100%. So just looking at this, what's interesting is if I'm just looking at purely the Springboks, you can see that they play off their loose forwards more than any other positions. And when you're looking at the backs, it's your back 3 as well. So it looks like your half backs essentially they don't carry as much, but what they're trying to do is kick the ball, create unstructured play, and get your back 3 involved that way, as opposed to a lot of passing to the back 3. I hardly see any sort of backline moves that gets the back 3 involved, other than
Mm.
through attacking kicks. So that's kind of what this is reflective of. Whereas when you look at the All Blacks, it's again very clear that we carry off of our loose forwards, but also our midfield and our back 3. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, how much of that's Damian McKenzie, how much of that's Will Jordan. That's really true. And you're right about the South African back 3. So much of it is the kick chase. They're probably better at retaining their own attacking kicks. Yeah.
exactly. But the good news is if you look at our forwards, man for man, we carry more meters than the Boks do. So that's also a good sign. We've got ball carrying forwards, and that's our strength. And I think that's how we'd want to impose ourselves in the game. My only concern is whether that will be negated by the power of the Boks during set piece.
Time will tell, I suppose.
Yeah,
But there's a
and
lot more handling going on there. A lot more carries, and so you can glean from this as well, a lot more handling.
oh yeah, so
Passing, in terms of front rowers, passing, getting involved. Yeah, think of Ethan de Groot, how often he kind of comes and chimes into the back line or something like that.
100%. So if you look at the carries, team carries per game, 177 versus 112.
Huge.
So
Yep.
that is huge. That's a huge effort, and I think again, like I said before, it's in line with our DNA and how we like to play. So I think this is the right style. It's the right style for us. It's not the right style.
Yes.
But I think it's if we
They know what. Yeah. They know what they're doing, and they've known what they're doing for a few years, and just a hope maybe now we're really figuring out how we need to play. Do you
Exactly.
have statistics as well around? So this is really the attack side of things, more around
Oh yeah.
defense, and if there's any areas that we could target. If they have a weakness, I'd love to know what it is.
Yeah. So this is the flip side of what we just looked at. So on the left, all these bars that you see is basically the tackles attempted per game. So this is not tackles made; these are tackles attempted. So tackles
Okay.
attempted also includes tackles made and missed. If that makes sense,
Yep.
right? Um, so if you can see the Springboks, they play
Mm.
all their loose forwards the most out of any positional number. Like the shift that they put in is insane. 51 tackles attempted. For us, it's 43.3 in the loose forwards. But interestingly, they also miss the most, right? So they miss 6 tackles a game on average, and that's about nearly 12% tackles missed. So they, again, going back to the point that we labored on before, and again, I don't want to go
Yeah.
back to it.
About the pressuring, where sometimes a missed tackle actually is helping.
Exactly. So that's where it's quite important to look at, even look at the fly halves, right? The halfbacks, the outside back. They miss tackles 1 in 3. Obviously, the numbers are pretty small, so it's a small sample. That's why I say like we need to take with a pinch of salt. But it clearly looks like their role is to pressure. Like they really don't care about missing tackles a lot. Look at the centers, 4.7 game, 4.7 missed tackles per game is a lot if you were to take
Yeah,
any other
yeah,
team.
it is. Yeah.
Um, but this South African team, that is a feature, not a bug, if I could say it in a tech terms. So that's just how their system works. They scramble, and they put a lot of pressure. So I wouldn't look at this as, oh, they miss a lot of tackles, which is, yes, they do.
Yeah, this
But
doesn't mean just run it, see ya, and Peter Steph the toy, and they'll just fall off you. That's not what we're saying. That's
no,
not what we're saying.
not at all. Not at all.
But it's interesting though.
Yeah, it is. Again, even with the centers, it's an indication that they just fly at you. They
Yeah,
fly at you.
to me, this is line speed, and it's
Yeah,
not always 100% accurate, but
yeah,
the general pace is our kryptonite. Sometimes
yes,
I do think
100%. So our ability to counter that line speed is going to be critical. And
kicking, dude, kicking
exactly.
smart.
And I think what a lot of people seem to underestimate as well is the fact that Rennie has intentionally, if you look at his back line, he's got Cam Roygard and, touch wood, positive juju as well. He'll be 100% come next Saturday. We need him. And then you got Ruben Love. Then you got Jordy Barrett. Um, then you got Quintupaya. I haven't seen him kick a lot, but I have seen a couple of times in Super Rugby where he does do, chips. Recently, he added that to his arsenal. You got Damien McKenzie. Okay, so you got 4 kicking options
Totally.
in that back line. And you saw Ruben Love kicking those 50-22s.
Oh, the 50-22. Unbelievable.
Yeah, you saw Jordy Barrett doing those, grubber kicks as well, and he can kick long as well. So
Look,
so yeah,
the kicking game ripped the Sharks to pieces. Again, caveat: we understand that's a club team missing frontliners. We're totally aware of that, but it did show creative kicking. And something you and I have talked about, being excited by the new attacking coach for the All Blacks from up north, Mike Blair. He's not saying, "Oh, we just will kick the ball in the air when we run out of ideas." No, he wants these guys to have a plan, and we're kicking to score points. Ultimately, that's why we're doing it, and I love that. I can already see him working a bit of magic.
Yeah, 100%. So I like we said, this doesn't mean run straight at Peter Steph.
No,
This means we need to be smarter
definitely not.
at avoiding defenders, because this is how they're going to come at us.
Let's talk a bit about the breakdown. I know we're getting close to the end here. If people are hanging in here, we appreciate it. This is a deep dive, but I think people wanted that. People are ready to just go down the data, wormhole, and you are delivering it, my friend. This is amazing work.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, Like you said, thanks everyone for still hanging in there. I know this
Yeah.
is relatively dry stuff, but I hope this gives you quite a bit of insight going into next Saturday. Just looking at numbers and looking at what potentially helps us win versus shapes that aren't really positive for us when we action them. So hopefully, once you're watching the game, be able to think, hey, what are we doing here? What's happening here? What are they trying to enact? What's the chess being played by both coaches in this game? And hopefully we're trying to unearth some of that in this analysis.
And I will say, if you're still hanging in there, we are going to get to, if I'm not mistaken, here are the 4 ways to beat the Boks. You're going to boil it all down in the end, right? The magic formula. So we're almost there. Let's keep going. We're getting there.
Cool. So this is what I was talking about before, Julian, in terms of the breakdown, right? And this is my concern. So on the left, we've got turnovers 1, and this is average. This is, okay, 3 games. So again, how much do you want to read into this is questionable, but it's all we've got under Rennie. So the good news is we are pretty good at turnovers 1. We've had 12. But the difference between us and the Boks is that the 12 for us came off of 6 players, whereas the 11 that the Springboks won in terms of turnovers came off of 9 players, which means they're spreading the workload across their pack. Whereas for us, look at that, in gold, 5 of the 12 came from Savea. So, which again,
he's our man. And we know that. He's the captain of the All Blacks. He's our player with the mana. He's our leader. And look, this is kind of Richie McCaw syndrome a little bit. Probably McCaw was even more so. I mean, he is the GOAT. Yeah. But one man, I mean, that just speaks for itself. They're just doing outsized work. And you're right, in terms of pure jacklers, look, I take your point well, and I do worry a bit about the loose forward combination. If I had to press you on your preferred combination, are you happy to put that out there, or how about this? Where do you think Rennie's going to go? Because I think Rennie likes Tupovai at 6. I think he likes that extra big body, the extra line-out option. I think he's very attracted to that. He obviously loves Jacobson. Jacobson was captain against the Sharks. That is not trivial. That is huge. Then obviously Savea is going to be the captain. It seems that he seems to like him at 8. Now, I would personally love Lakai in there because he just gives me a feeling of security because I think he is so mobile and gets around and hits so many rucks. But that would be my guess, what I just said of how Rennie's going to go. Do you more or less think that will be how it will play out?
Oh, no, I absolutely concur with that selection. I think you want height in your back row, and you want that physical presence, which is what Tupovai does. And then, Luke Jacobson, like you said, he's a bit of a favorite for Rennie, and I think he's proven a lot of his doubters wrong as well.
Including me, to be completely honest. I'm a huge fan at Chiefs level. Well, not at super level. I think he's it's clear his class. I just hadn't seen that step up. Part of it's injuries too. He hasn't had a run of games starting. And so it wasn't that I have anything against Jacobson. I'm just like, I haven't seen it in the black jersey. And now I'm kind of seeing the vision, what I've seen this year. The defense is amazing. And I think he's stepped up a bit on attack as well. I remember he got that inside ball away against France, really for what was one of the match sealing tries. So he's doing stuff on attack as well.
Oh yeah, no. Peter Lakai is definitely as a lot of others have kind of mentioned as well. He's a young RD. Is that's the mold, and you can also kind of see Wallace Satiti is kind of in that same mold as well. For me, my main concern is the fetchers, is the hunters. Right now, I've only seen Savea play that role, and I don't really see a lot of the others tend to do that. I'm not too worried about mixing and matching between Ethan Blackadder and Luke Jacobson. I think you get the same style of like niggly,
abrasive
kind of physical, back rower. So you can just swap the two and they'll give you the same output. My concern is this, to be honest, the turnovers one. And as we saw, that's such an important part of winning games against the Springboks. That's what, Rennie tried to do with the Chiefs and with the Wallabies and was successful. I have question marks on this. And
Well, here's one for you. Have we ever really found a Quagga Smith type player to come off the bench? I know a lot of Kiwis love Duplessis Karifi, not in the squad. You told me something interesting, if you want to repeat it, just about his stats, that maybe we have a slightly inflated idea of his turnover stats, if you're happy to talk about that.
yeah, I actually did a video on this as well. I specifically talked about the players that were omitted from the initial 34-man squad. Although I was a bit surprised that Karifi wasn't in the 44-man squad to South Africa. But while looking at the stats, interestingly, Karifi, couple of things go against him. First is that, and that's something he can't change. And as a person who is relatively short myself, or objectively short myself, that's not something that I can change. Like, that's not something that Karifi can change. It's not he can't work at becoming taller. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. Work on your height in the gym, could you? Yeah.
So that's again a bit of a negative. The second part is, as a 7, unfortunately, he's kind of pigeonholed into that one role, and there's this perception that he's the best at jackling. Unfortunately, when you look at the stats between him and Anton Segner, Segner gives you actually across this past Super Rugby season, he's actually given you more turnovers won as opposed to Karifi.
Is that right? Yeah.
And actually, now that you've mentioned it, it reminds me that it's not just Segner, it's Quintupaya and Tawatawan have more jackal numbers than Karifi. So if you're one of the selectors and you're thinking, hey, I've got Tawatawan and Quintupaya, who are potentially our hunters, then and this is his one job, which is either, if as a 7 you got to be really effective at defense, at tackle, which he's exceptionally good at. He's the best in terms of tackle completion rates, 90%. But in terms of dominant tackles, he's not up there. In terms of turnovers won, he isn't up there.
He's got the pure work rate for sure, though.
Yeah, but the biggest metric that goes against him is the penalties conceded. He was one of the highest conceding, forward in Super Rugby amongst the players that were in the picture for the squad selection. And Super Rugby, and again, thinking about context, is the competition that refed the most leniently, if I could say that. So,
correct. Yes.
Something like that with a bad, penalty record, and international rugby, where I really don't understand what goes on there with the reffing at international level, but it sounds like a step up in terms of
and I'm not being a smartass or disrespectful, but I mean, I think this is not really even an opinion, it's just kind of a fact. I think that a lot of the Northern Hemisphere referees are stricter, and they clearly police the breakdown differently. So the penny just kind of dropped for me as you were explaining that may be the stat of why Karifi's not in the All Black squad right now. Just that lack of hygiene, if we'll call it that, at the breakdown. The lack of cleanliness.
Yeah. And, it is unfortunate, to be honest, because I'm a huge Karifi fan. I mean,
guy's amazing. Yeah, he's dynamite.
Yeah, he definitely wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's awesome. But yeah, I mean,
wow, yeah. Okay, my friend, have we made it to the promised land?
I think so. Let me check. Yes, we have.
Here we go. If you've made it this far, thank you, and make sure you subscribe to this man's amazing channel, like I have, and you can get statistical analysis like this every week. Do that.
Thanks. Yes. So, so there's four things that we can kind of get out of the stats that we looked at, and these 4 are purely based off of the stats that we looked at in the previous slides. The first thing is, as much as we'd like to play with faster ball, we absolutely have to plan for slow ball, because on average we get a 51% in both wins and in losses. So we need to figure out how to play against the Boks with relatively slow ball. Second
And what's good
is,
about this, it's not quick ball or bust. That's an important takeaway because we started to maybe think that a little bit. We've got to have this lightning quick ball. It's the only way. There is some hope. Even without that, we can find a way. So that's a hopeful one, I think, actually.
yes, 100%. Second is, it's not enough making line breaks. We also need to create entries, and then you've got to double the return. So I know it's a hard ask. It's easier said than done. But it's not enough making line breaks, and we are very good at making line breaks. Our challenge is going to be making sure that we enter into the Springbok 22, and every single time we enter that 22, we have to finish off and come away with points. Like, that is going to be incredibly important.
And can I just say, take the damn 3 sometimes. And I think they
Yes.
will. If we get a penalty, take the points. We got to keep the scoreboard ticking over in that first half. And I just don't know if we should go to the corner every time. I know that's the optimism, but I think we got to be smart. Like you say, if we're in the 22, we got to come out with something. If it's 3, so be it. That'd be great.
100%. I mean, you could obviously play, and obviously the players are the ones who would, have a better feel for how things are going. If they, go, at least multi-phase, and they aren't able to break the line, then I think, if they get an opportunity, there's advantage, then absolutely go for those points rather than, trying,
in general, they're going to play the attacking hand, and we love that about the All Blacks. There's their style. I just think that a couple times, though, it might be smart to take a deep breath and take the points if we can get them.
Yeah, and also, Julian, to your point, we're playing in altitude at Ellis Park, and the Springboks do this to us a lot, where whenever we give away a penalty, in our half between the 40 and the 22-meter line, you wouldn't be surprised to see Pollard taking a penalty. Even if it's a 60-meter, 65-meter, penalty, they will go for it. And you see the French do that as well. They take the penalty when it's on offer. So, luckily, Ruben Love seems to be in really good nick. He had some really good, kicks to goal in the game against the Sharks, and I'd love to see him take on like a 60, 65-meter, penalty.
Do a Dan Carter special like he did.
Yeah,
altitude.
That would be incredible
and we got Geordie too. Geordie's a good long range kicker.
Oh yeah, because what that does is, it just makes the opposition play differently, because the moment they make, they concede a penalty, they know that that's, 3 points given away. So, so that adds an additional, pressure as well. So, we'd absolutely need to bring the full skill sets, drop goals, penalties, everything. We're not coming off from our 22 without points scored. Like, we absolutely need to keep the pressure on. That should be the mentality going into these games against the Springboks. And third, this is a big one, starting fast, but also maintaining that lead over the majority of the game. So you want to be ahead from the start, because that last 20 minutes is going to make or break the result. So you want to be in a position where you can dictate the ending, as opposed to allowing the Springboks to come back into the game.
And I just want to call out, different coach, different era, but recently, I mean, that's what happened when Razor Robertson took the team over, 2 in a row, lost in the Republic, and we were leading much of those games, and it was the fourth quarter fade. So it's about putting enough points on the board. And what I'm liking is our third quarter is trending in a better direction than it was under Razor. So it's kind of like make it to the fourth quarter and hold on for dear life. Is what I'm kind of hearing.
100%. And I felt like even Razor didn't do a really good job of, bringing on his bench in time. I felt like that was something that he didn't really do quite well. Or he didn't have a plan, is what I felt like. He wanted his best players on the pitch for most of the game, which wasn't probably, in hindsight, ideal. But I feel like the new regime seems to have a plan. They seem to be, understanding how the modern game is played, and that it is a 23v23, not a 15v15. So, and managing minutes, managing the game, closing off the game is now incredibly important. So that leading for most of the game is really important. Unfortunately, we are not the All Blacks of old under McCaw, where we'd leave it until the last 20 minutes. That's the Boks now. So
it's true.
Yeah, and lastly, we need to win turnovers, because again, the breakdown is the key, and I think we need to win as a team as opposed to just Savea, which I think is the key. And I think we're going to see a lot of hunting done by our midfield. I wouldn't be surprised if they use Quintupaya. If they go with a Leroy Carter, for example, he's pretty decent as well. Tawatawa Nawai is pretty good at pilfering ball and jackling. So I think they're going to spread that across the whole team. But yeah, the breakdown is incredibly important. And whenever we do stamp our authority on the breakdown, especially in the second half, we see that we have that ascendancy. So those are the four of the data that we have. Without excluding what we have in our data set, because stuff like scrum penalty wins and line out security and attacking kick rates and kicking styles, it's not reflected in my data set, unfortunately, because I'm using publicly available data on Rugby Pass. So I don't have this additional advanced metrics. But I would, in addition to this four, it goes without being said, we got to absolutely nail the scrums. We got to absolutely, make sure that they don't dominate at line out time, and that, oh, for God's sakes, I really, really hope we're able to, diffuse those aerial bombs that they're gonna kick at us. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be a lot of contestable kicking come Saturday. And you know what, Julian? I think one thing that I'm also very, very encouraged by is, I don't know if you remember in that Sharks game, when we got a free kick, Jordie Barrett took the ball and he kicked
Gary Owen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that was like, see how you like that, right? So I think
no, I totally agree. We're so on the same page that I think that the All Blacks might kick a lot more than people are expecting, and that is not a bad thing at all.
Yeah, 100%. And I'd love to see it. I'd absolutely love to see it. So I think we will be kicking a lot more against the Boks, and I think they're going to be smart because of how they maneuver our attacking shapes. I think we're going to open up a lot of gaps. And when you've got a fast line speed, those gaps open up if you're smart. It's just that your execution needs to be spot on. A couple of things I've heard, some of I think I heard Beaver talk about this on the aftermatch, where he kind of talked about how Ruben Love, he stands a bit deep, so that allows you some time and space, and he doesn't even run towards the ball. He lets the defenders come at him, so again, that making them run rather than you're trying to meet them midway. Why would you do that? Why would you give them shorter?
Give yourself time. Yeah, give yourself time.
Yeah. So I think there are ways that I'm pretty sure Mike Blair might have thought about in terms of countering that line speed. So it'll be an interesting chess match. I think as much as this is going to be a physical game, I think tactically this is going to be so fascinating to see how the two coaches and the two teams execute their game plans. And a lot of people obviously are talking about the fact that this is a clash of styles. It's really going to be interesting to see which style wins, right? I'm pumped. I'm really, really pumped for next.
Me too, dude. Me too. And look, this might be the only time we ever do, like a 90-minute video diving into the data, but there's so much hype and excitement around this. If we were ever going to do it about one series, it's this. So, hey, maybe in a month we'll look back and we can, how about we agree to, maybe I'll come on your channel and we look at what happened, what were the stats from the series, what were the key turning points. That'd be fun to kind of do a post-mortem on all this. So let's reconnect and do that.
100%. And I'm going to be in South Africa this Thursday. I'm landing in South Africa, so I'll be covering the first couple of games. And you're going to the Baltimore game, right? So
I am. I'll be the one in the United States, which could be the decider. We'll see. And on that, I mean, do you dare make a prediction about how this is going to go?
Oh my God, this is. I mean, again, I'm gonna. This is some professional fence sitting,
Yeah.
but I would say, um, the the heart says a 2-2 draw. The
Right.
the mind says probably a 3-1 loss.
Wow. So I'm going to frame it as the probability is a 3-1 to the Springboks.
Yeah.
Not saying it's going to happen. I think most people agree that's probably the most likely. Looking at this data and seeing actually some strengths the All Blacks have and improvements, I'm kind of in my head seeing a draw, and my heart says 3-1 All Blacks. So there's my fence sitting.
Yeah.
Let's go with
Yeah.
my heart tonight. We'll say 3-1 to the All Blacks. All right, that's what I'm going with.
Let's go with the heart. We can always
Okay,
dream.
beautiful. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, guys. Subscribe to this man's channel, the best data analysis on YouTube, Rugby from the Stands. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great time in South Africa, and we'll do it again soon, man.
Thanks, Julian. You too. Take care.
Cheers. Thanks, man.
Bye.